If we keep this up, a middle-aged woman will find out where we live. I was scared. Then Shin started to say, "Be careful not to run into that woman for a while." But I immediately raised my voice a little. "It's impossible. They already know Jun's grade in class. It's only a matter of time before we're found out too." "But that woman, does she really intend to do something to us?" Shin continued. "Remember when we ran into her on the way back from school? If she wanted to do something, she could have done it then." And about the mountain. If she hasn't forgiven us, there should have been some kind of curse carved there against us, right? Indeed. When we went to the mountain, there was indeed no new curse against us. Our secret base was destroyed, though. There was a new photo of a girl with nails in it, but there was no curse carving for Jun, whose full name was known to her. Deep down, I wanted to argue, is that so? But I didn't. I wanted to believe, as Shin said, that the middle-aged woman wasn't as resentful towards us as we thought, perhaps even beginning to forget. Shin said once more, if she really resented us, she would have taken some kind of action, right? As if to reassure me. And then, maybe she's not loitering around the school looking for us, but looking for the girl in the photo. He continued, so that's it. Hearing Shin's words, I felt a bit relieved. Or rather, I forced myself to accept what Shin said, convincing myself. It might be close to escapism. Maybe Shin felt the same way. Unable to find a way to escape from the middle-aged woman, he said it. But she'll forget about us eventually. She's already forgotten. Damn it, we got scared for nothing. We should make her cry, huh? We showed off to each other. It might be somewhat desperate. For a while, Shin and I joked about the middle-aged woman, laughing. It started to get dark, and we decided to head home. As we reached the parting way with Shin, let's check on Jun on the way back tomorrow. Yeah, let's do that. We cheerfully waved goodbye to each other. My heart felt a bit brighter. That's right. As Shin said, the middle-aged woman has already forgotten about us. I repeated it to myself like a mantra. My steps felt lighter, kicking stones on my way home. Looking up, the sky was clear, and countless stars twinkled, a refreshingly beautiful night sky. Worrying about the middle-aged woman felt foolish now. Approaching home, I remembered there was an anime I wanted to watch, and I quickened my pace. Tap, 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 tap. My footsteps echoed in the night town. Tap, 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 tap. It was a quiet night. Tap, 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 tap. Huh? Tap, 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 tap. I heard footsteps other than mine. I turned around. It was dark, and no one was there. Maybe it was just my imagination. Laughing at myself for being such a coward, I started running again. Tap, 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 tap. Wait, someone is there. I stopped again, straining my eyes to look back. Still, no one was there. Surely, along with my footsteps, I heard someone running behind me. Am I being mentally cornered by the middle-aged woman like Jun, or just too scared? I stood still for a while, staring back. My heart, pounding hard, nearly stopped for a moment. About 15 meters back, someone was crouching, or rather hiding, behind a parked moat in front of a house. It was hard to see clearly in the moonlight, but one thing was clear. They're wearing a coat. I froze for a while. The person hiding seemed to think they hadn't been spotted, but their silhouette was clear. I was momentarily confused. It's the middle-aged woman. 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 I felt like my legs were about to give out, but perhaps it was instinct. The next moment, I have to run. 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 Another part of me commanded. I ran as hard as I could, more desperately than in any sports day. I ran breathlessly, hearing nothing but the wind cutting past me. I dashed towards my house mindlessly, only 10 meters away from home. All right, I can escape. A thought flashed through my mind. If I run into the house now, she'll definitely know where I live. In a split second, I passed by my house and continued running down the narrow alleys of the residential area, without any destination, just to shake off the middle-aged woman who might be following me. After about 5 minutes of running aimlessly, I started to walk out of breath and turned back. The middle-aged woman or any similar figure or footsteps were no longer audible. I cautiously started walking back towards my house. Approaching within about 10 meters of my home, I once again checked my surroundings and dashed to the entrance. As both of my parents were working, I was a latchkey kid. I quickly unlocked the door, entered, and locked it behind me. Phew, A sigh of relief naturally escaped me. Thinking I should report this to Shin, I was about to take off my shoes when I heard a noise from the entrance. I froze, still in the act of removing my shoes, staring at the entrance door. My house's entrance has a sliding door with frosted glass and aluminum frames, and through the frosted glass, I could see the shadow of someone standing outside. The middle-aged woman was standing about a meter away on the other side of the entrance door. I held my breath, stopped moving, and erased my presence. No, rather, I couldn't move. It was as if I was paralyzed. A frog being stared down by a snake must describe the situation. I could only stare at the shadow of the middle-aged woman through the frosted glass. For a while, the middle-aged woman just stood still beyond the entrance, not moving an inch. Did she know I was here? Then, through the glass, her left arm slowly started to move. It reached towards the door handle, and the door creaked with a kish sound. My heartbeat sped up as never before in my life. After confirming that the door was locked, the middle-aged woman slowly withdrew her arm and remained in place. I was still frozen. Then, the middle-aged woman moved closer to the entrance door and squatted down, pressing her left ear tightly against the glass. She was listening for sounds inside. The middle-aged woman's ear was clearly visible against the frosted glass in front of me. I was so tense I felt like vomiting. My heartbeat reached its peak, feeling like my heart would burst. I was afraid she could hear my heartbeat. After 2 or 3 minutes of listening at the door, the middle-aged woman stood up again, turned towards us, and slowly, step by step, started backing away. Gradually, her shadow on the glass faded and eventually disappeared. Did she leave? I couldn't feel relieved at all because, did the middle-aged woman leave? Did she know I was here at the entrance? Is she still lurking around the house? If the middle-aged woman had seen me enter this house and was confident of my presence before taking those actions, she would definitely be around the house. I slowly, with utmost caution, took off my shoes and moved to the living room. I didn't turn on any lights. Turning on the light might reveal my presence. Upon entering the living room, I immediately grabbed the telephone receiver and dialed Shin's home number by memory. Shin himself answered after 3 rings. "Shin, it's bad. She came. The middle-aged woman came. I've been spotted. I whispered to Shin in panic. What happened?" Shin asked. "The middle-aged woman came to my house. Hurry up and do something." I pleaded with Shin. "Calm down. Is there no one else at home?" "Me. No one's here. Hurry up and help." "First, check the locks. Where's the middle-aged woman now?" "I don't know, but she was just in front of the house." "Don't panic. First, check the locks." "Got it." "Okay, I'll check the locks, so hurry up and come." After hanging up, I went to check the locks, starting with the bathroom. Of course, I didn't turn on any lights in the house. Using all my senses, I moved through the dark house, feeling along the walls towards the bathroom. First, I quietly closed the bathroom window without making a sound. Next was the bath next door. I slowly closed the bath window and locked it. Then, after leaving the bath, I went to check the windows on the veranda. I walked along the wall in the corridor to the Japanese-style room with the veranda. I felt something off when I looked at the veranda window. No, as usual, the window was closed with lace curtains, but on the left edge, there was a silhouette. Someone was outside the window, pressing their face against the window, with hands around their eyes like binoculars, peeking into the room. Since the lights inside the house were off, it was brighter outside, and I could clearly see the figure from inside. The middle-aged woman was clinging to the window like a gecko. I felt like my legs would give out. Was this an animal instinct? Like a herbivore that has spotted a predator, I instinctively crouched down. My body was shaking unconsciously. Could the middle-aged woman see me from there? The middle-aged woman peered into the room for a while, then slowly moved to the center of the window in the same posture. Then, a disturbing squeaking sound came from the window. The middle-aged woman's right hand was rubbing the window. Her left hand remained near her eyes, peering inside. The squeaking sound continued, and my fear reached its peak. I was terrified by the middle-aged woman's bizarre behavior, too scared even to make a sound. Then, the middle-aged woman looked back and ran off with incredible speed. I didn't understand what had happened and could only watch the window motionlessly. Then I saw a flashing red light on the road beyond the window. "The police have come," I realized the situation. The middle-aged woman had noticed a patrol car passing by and ran away. I remained crouched down, shaking for a while. Ring! Suddenly the phone rang, nearly stopping my heart. The display showed it was a call from Shin's house. I hastily answered the phone. How is it? She was peeping into the room, but she's gone now. I see. Have your parents come back? Me? No. A patrol car passed by accidentally, and I think that scared the middle-aged woman away. That's good. I reported a suspicious person near your house, but if she knows where you live, you might need to talk to your parents soon. Me? I'll tell my parents today. You should tell yours too. It's dangerous now. Yeah. After hanging up, my mother returned from her part-time job about 30 minutes later. I ran to the entrance with the lights still off, and as soon as I saw my mother's face, I started crying, perhaps out of relief. My mother looked puzzled, but after I continued crying for a while, I'm sorry. I began with an apology and explained everything from that night to just now. During the explanation, my father also came home, and my mother explained it to him. Afterward, my father silently went to check the window glass in the Japanese-style room. The window glass had been severely scratched by something sharp. I intuitively knew that something sharp was a 5-inch nail. My parents didn't scold me. My mother hugged me, and my father called the police. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. My father explained the situation to them. I stayed in the living room with my mother for a while, but then a police officer came in and asked about that night. About Happy in Touch, the photo of the girl nailed to a tree, Jun's name carved at our secret base. And about the encounter after school, I told them everything related to the middle-aged woman and just now. Forensic personnel seemed to be present, taking fingerprints from the window while I spoke. The officer was most interested in the photo of the girl. They asked about the girl's appearance and if we knew her, but I could only answer, I don't know. Then they made me draw a map of the back mountain, and the police said they would investigate the next day, promising to increase nighttime patrols around our house. The police left after that. In the end, no fingerprints were found. Later, Shin and Jun's parents called. They talked about something, more about how to explain to the school than about the middle-aged woman. That night, for the first time in years, I slept with my parents. Without any embarrassment, I was purely afraid of the middle-aged woman and had trouble falling asleep. The next morning, I was awakened by my mother after 8 a.m. I'm going to be late. I panicked, but my mother said, stay home and rest today. It seemed she had already explained the situation to the school. My father had already gone to work, but my mother had taken the day off. I thought that probably Shin and Jun would also be absent from school today, but I didn't dare to call them. I was afraid to call because I thought Shin might have been scolded by his strict parents, and Jun's parents would be shocked to learn the truth about Jun's absenteeism. I stayed in my room, hoping that the middle-aged woman would be caught by the police soon. I wanted to be freed from the terror that was closing in on us as soon as possible. For some reason, my mother didn't mention anything about the middle-aged woman. Maybe she was being considerate towards me? I also didn't say anything. After having lunch and retreating to my room again, a dull thud echoed against the outside wall of the house. I instantly thought, it's Shin. He often threw pebbles at my window to call me out instead of ringing the doorbell. I looked outside the window. I expect to see Shin by the utility pole in the alley in front of our house, but he wasn't there. Wondering if he was hiding somewhere, I searched the visible area, but found no one. Then, from the garden below my room, my mother's scream, "Kya!" startled me. Surprised, I opened the window, leaned out, and looked down. There was my mother, covering her mouth with her hand, staring at the ground in shock. I didn't understand what was happening and asked, "What's wrong?" My mother, startled by my voice, looked up at me with a shocked expression and silently pointed at the house's outer wall. I had a bad feeling, but looked in the direction she was pointing. There was a viscous purple liquid and jelly-like substance. It was probably the source of the thud sound from earlier. I looked down at my mother's feet to find what she was looking at. There lay a large bullfrog with its innards protruding, dead. My mother stood still, stunned, for a while. I immediately thought of the middle-aged woman and scanned the area for her, but she was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly remembering something, my mother rushed into the living room and called the police. My mother looked pale. Probably, for the first time, she truly understood the abnormality of the middle-aged woman. Yes, that woman is abnormal. She must be smirking somewhere close by, having thrown the frog and watching our shocked reactions. She must be watching me from nearby. I got goosebumps. Please hurry, police, I silently prayed. This house was no longer a home. To the middle-aged woman, it was like a birdcage where she could see everything we did. I felt constantly watched. A patrol car arrived after a while with 2 different officers from yesterday. One officer inspected the outer wall and the road where the frog might have been thrown, while the other asked me and my mother vague questions like, "Did you see anything? What happened at that time?" Finally, the officer said something unsettling. "You received harassment yesterday too, right? It's highly likely that the perpetrator will do something similar again soon." I couldn't help it and pleaded almost in tears. "It's that cursed woman. A woman in her 40s wearing a coat. Please catch her." Then the officer said, "We just checked the mountain. We found a dog's body, your friend's name carved on a board, and also that girl's photo. We're going to investigate those and catch the perpetrator for sure." He patted my shoulder and went to talk to my mother about contacting the husband or something. They took photos of the frog stain and the dead body on the wall, and after about an hour, the officers left. My father came home early before 5 p.m., probably worried because of what happened yesterday. During dinner preparation by my mother and while my father was reading the evening paper, there was an unspoken restlessness. Of course, I was also anxious about when the middle-aged woman might come next. Dinner passed in silence, with only the sound of the TV filling the room. And after 11 p.m., we all went to bed. For safety, we left the living room lights on downstairs. That night, the whole family slept in the same room again. Of course, I had trouble falling asleep. How much time had passed? Suddenly at the entrance, "Hey!" A man's deep voice followed by, "Ah!" The familiar, bizarre shriek of the middle-aged woman echoed. My whole family jumped up, and my father rushed to the entrance. I was tightly hugged by my mother, and we stayed in the bedroom. Click-clack, rattle-rattle. The sound of my father unlocking and opening the door was heard. With the door opening, again, "Damn it, ah!" The middle-aged woman's scream was heard again. "Stay calm, hey, stop struggling." A man's voice was also heard. At this moment I realized, it's the police. She's been caught by the police. The middle-aged woman continued her eerie shrieks. Trembling, I couldn't leave my mother's arms, but my father came back and asked, "The culprit has been caught. They want you to confirm if it's the same person you saw on the mountain." Are you okay with that? Of course I wasn't okay, but telling myself that this could finally end everything. Yeah, I replied and slowly went downstairs to the entrance. From the entrance, "You, damn you, are you tormenting me too?" The middle-aged woman's loud scream made my legs freeze, but my father held my shoulder, and I stood before the middle-aged woman, restrained by 2 officers. At first, overwhelmed by fear, I could only look at my feet, but encouraged by my father's gentle pat, I slowly raised my eyes to meet the middle-aged woman. Held tightly by the 2 officers, her chin scraping against the ground, the middle-aged woman glared at me. She seemed to have struggled a lot. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes bloodshot, and she was drooling like a rabid dog. You, how much more will you torment me?" The middle-aged woman screamed incomprehensibly and writhed. The officer restraining her asked, "No mistake, this is the one who was on the mountain, right?" Overwhelmed by the middle-aged woman's intensity, I couldn't speak and just nodded silently. The officer quickly handcuffed her. "You are under arrest for attempted arson." Even after being handcuffed, she continued to scream and struggle, but the officers managed to take her to the patrol car. Then one officer came back to us and said, "I'll explain the situation. We were patrolling in front of your house and saw a figure at the entrance, that woman. She was crouched down, trying to light a fire with a lighter. Do you have old newspapers at your entrance?" "No, we don't have any." "Then did she bring these herself?" He pointed to something. There was a bundle of newspapers, not from the newspaper service we subscribed to. The officer, noticing something, pulled out something from the bundle. A wooden board. It was carved with wishing for Friar Nar's fiery death, along with my full name. Chills ran through my body. She had indeed investigated my name. I felt faint thinking about what could have happened if the police hadn't been patrolling. My mother started crying and hugged me tightly, stroking my head. The officer remained silent for a while before starting to talk about the middle-aged woman. That woman, well, she's a bit mentally ill. She lives in Natter town, and there have been quite a few complaints. Well, some sympathy as well. He began to talk about the middle-aged woman. Officer, 2 years ago, she lost her husband and son in a traffic accident. Since then, she's been emotionally unstable and schizophrenic. There have been disputes with neighbors. We were able to identify her from the photo of the girl found on the mountain. The accident 2 years ago, her husband and son died when she swerved to avoid a girl who ran onto the road and crashed into a wall. The girl who ran out was unharmed. Since then, she has been harassing that girl's family. But since the accident was what it was, no complaint has been filed by the girl's family. She must really resent that girl. Hearing this, I couldn't feel any sympathy. Instead, the middle-aged woman's tenacity was palpable, especially the emotional instability and schizophrenia acknowledged by the officer. Would she be released soon? Would we have to live in fear of the middle-aged woman again? Hearing the officer's story, I felt more despair than relief spreading in my heart.